All right, we're going to have some fun today. I'm excited about this. I'm probably as excited about this class today as I think I've ever been for any class. But I want to, first of all, this is our second week for those of you joining us online in our brand new Bible class here at the Waters Road Church of Christ. We're studying the book by Brother Jack Wilkie called Church Reset. And we are in week number 2. Now, last Sunday in this class, really the real purpose or the thing I wanted to accomplish last week, and the same thing the author wanted to do in chapter 1 of the book, is I wanted to get you to begin to ask the question. The question is, was the church meant to be more? And this question, really and truly, is a twofold question. Isn't the church meant to be more in our lives, right? Individually, and how we operate on an individual basis in terms of our involvement in the church is kind of the norm in the culture of which we live in. Is that what God intended? Or did he intend it to be more than that? That's first fold, that's the individual basis. But as a whole, as a church, is what we're seeing today, especially here in our country and in our culture, is this what we have today? Everything that we see today as the church, is that exactly the amount that God desired for us? Or was the church meant to be more? Now, I think 3 answers you could probably have to that question this morning after week 1. You could probably say, no, Jonathan, I think that this is exactly everything that God intended and no more. Whether me as an individual or the church as a whole, Jonathan, I feel like what I see here in our country, what I see in our churches in general, that's what God intended. And if that's your answer, that's okay. I just ask you to withhold judgment as we go forward a little bit more. The second possibility, you might be in the middle. You might say, Jonathan, I'm just not sure yet. This is just week 1 last week in first chapter, and I'm not sure that God intended it to be more than what we have right now, but I'm not sold either way. Okay, you're still in good shape too, and we're going to continue to learn and maybe develop some thoughts. Or maybe after week 1, you've taken an introspective look at your life and your relationship to the church, and you've took a look at the way the church operates today and what we see here in America, and you say, Jonathan, I believe that, in all honesty, when I take a good deep look at it, that yes, God intended for my life personally to be more involved in the church and to revolve around the church family than what it currently does. And I also believe that God intended more for the church as a whole than just this kind of situation that we see going on in our country and even in our local congregations. Now, keep in mind, and this is a disclaimer for those that are in this class and those that are watching online. A lot of time we're going to talk about the church. And we're not going to always be speaking. In fact, we'll speak more in general terms about the church than we will here at Waters Road. Does everybody understand that? Okay. And there's going to be times we're going to talk about the church, and sometimes we're going to be talking about the church universal. Okay. Sometimes we're going to be talking about the local church or the congregation. But depending upon your answer to that week 1 question, I still want you, regardless of that answer, to keep an open mind as we go forward. But if you decided after week 1, Jonathan, listen, I've looked at this and I agree with the author. I look at my existence in the church today and the church's existence as a whole, and Jonathan, just feels like there's something missing. It feels like there was something more that God intended us to be. I'm not sure yet what it is, but I feel like there's something more. Well, I think we'd be tempted to just simply try to answer that question and say, well, then what is it that he intends, right? And what's the way that we can see the picture of what God intended the church to be? By the Bible, right? So I think we'd be tempted just to go ahead today and answer that question. But no, we're going to save that for week number 3. But if you say there's a problem, if you say that we're not everything God intends for us to be, both individually and collectively, if that's what you feel this morning, then let's diagnose the problem. Let's talk about, how did we get to this point? How is it that the church of today in 2022 in America, now you may have lived in other countries and other cultures, and you may have different perspectives, but for those of us here in America, those of us here in Texas, those of us even in a large city like Houston, because is there a difference between a big city feeling congregation and a rural area congregation? Is there a difference?
Absolutely.
Absolutely right. So if you have only been part of a big city type congregation, you have a perspective. And if you've at some point in your life been part of a more rural congregation, a smaller town, you have a different perspective. And maybe you've been in both, and so you've got dual perspectives. But what we're going to do today is we're going to diagnose the problem. We're going to see, why does the local church, okay, because that's what the perspective we're looking at this morning, why does the local church exist in the manner of which it does today? Okay, does everybody understand that question? Okay, you ready? All right, I'm going to flip this board over. I've got an assignment for you today. We're going to start a restaurant. Now, they tell us that there are 5 things that are most essential for the development, growth, and success of a restaurant. 5 things. Now, what we're going to do at this time, I already know what those 5 things are. And if you've read chapter 2, I suspect that you kind of have an idea of what those 5 things are. But we're going to talk about these 5 things for just a moment. So this is group participation time. This is where you do the talking. And I'm going to ask you, out of these 5, I want you to name me one at a time, 5 things that are essential for starting our restaurant. Number 1, or doesn't matter, it's not a numerical order, but we'll just go in the order that you give them to me.
Good or great food.
Good or great food. So really and truly, that would be what? What would we call that in a restaurant?
The menu.
The menu, that's right. The menu or the product, that's right. And let's talk about menu for just a moment. Why do you have a menu in a restaurant?
You've got to have a manager before you can start all this out.
Well, this is not in any particular order, okay?
Okay.
So we're just taking it one at a time. Menu. Why is it important to have a menu?
So people have choices.
You want to let people know, first of all, what? What you have to offer. They've got to know what it is that you've got to offer as a restaurant. If they don't know what you have to offer, it's going to be harder for them to decide whether or not they want to eat at your place, right? And when it comes to a menu, you put it out on that menu and you hope that they what?
Like it.
They hope that what they see they like, right? Because they haven't tasted it yet, right? How many of you have ever been in a drive-through menu, look at the menu and you look at it and you stare at it and you stare at it and you go, I have no idea. Sometimes menus can overwhelm you a little bit, can they not? Menu, that's a very important one. Menu. What else?
Location.
Okay, location. I'm going to put this up here at number 1, locations. Not that it's most important, but these are the orders of which they were given to me. Location. Now, let's talk about location for a moment. Why is it important to have a location?
Convenience.
So you want to have it in a good area, right? You want to have it in a good, maybe thoroughfare, a place where it's easy for them to access. Have you ever seen a restaurant fail because it was not located in an easy area? Absolutely. Why else is a location important?
Is it easy to get into and out of? I know
That's true.
I can help it.
Siri thought I was talking to her.
I'm not sure I understand.
I don't think you do either.
Jonathan,
Go ahead.
I've been in the business, so I know what this means. Visual. We were located on the intersection of two major highways. Our business was Dairy Queen.
Right.
And because we attracted going through town traffic as well as the local traffic.
And you know what? That word attract is another side of this, attractive, right? Is it important that your restaurant looks attractive,
Oh, yes.
both on the outside as well as the inside? One of my favorite restaurants, Rick Ludwig and I share this, is Captain D's. Now, the problem with Captain D's restaurants here in Texas is they look like they're about to fall apart. You drive up in the restaurant, if you've been to one of the Alvin, you think it's going to burn down at any moment. And the one over in Baytown doesn't look much better, but food's still good, but people don't tend to stop because why? They see the building, they go, ooh, that looks run down. So a location is important. What else do we need? So far we've got menu and location. Marketing, very, very good. That's very, very good. Marketing. Now, let's talk about, Miss Julie bought me these markers, and apparently they were bought at the Don't Work store.
They were on sale.
They must have been. Marketing, let's try this one. There we go, marketing. All right, let's talk about marketing for a moment. How does a restaurant market their business? Advertisements. You got to let people know when you're having a what? Sale, special. Years ago, you can't do this anymore, but I remember years ago when Arby's would put a sign on the front that would say 5 roast beef sandwiches for $5. Have you tried to buy a roast beef sandwich at Arby's lately? You can't even get one for $5 now. But marketing, I mean, you've got to let people know where you're located and what you have to offer. Maybe even, a note about a special deal that you're offering, or what are you trying to do with marketing? What's the end desired marketing? You want to do what? You want to draw people in. Absolutely. That's so essential. All right. 2 more on the board, as they say in the Family Feud. What else? Staff. All right. I'm going to put that one number 2, Miss Bobby. I'll put you right there at number 2, staff. Now, staff depends on the restaurant, right? If it's one of those sit-down, highfalutin, fancy places, you got to have a what? You got to have a good what? A good chef.
Okay.
Because it doesn't matter how great of a wait staff you have, if they're bringing out grub that don't taste well, the whole thing's going to suffer. But you're exactly right. Wait staff, you got to have a great wait staff. You've got to have those people that can take care of the customers, and you got to have the kitchen staff that can make those appetizing foods that you and I enjoy. And I could tell you, out of the 4 that we've got right now, that staff can make or break a restaurant, can it not? How many of you have ever ate at a place and the food was good, but the wait staff frustrated you to the point where you never went back again? I've been there and done that. And there's one more. And I don't know, but this might be the most important one out of the whole thing. What are we missing on this board?
I don't know if this is the cost.
Cost?
Maybe not.
That's not what we're looking for here. That's important, though.
Cash flow.
What's that?
Cash flow.
Cash flow, that's important. You're a business lady. You know all about cash flow.
You're reliant.
We're completely missing this one. I think when you hear it, when somebody comes up with it, you're going to go, oh yeah, that makes so much sense. What is the one thing on this list that we don't have, that if you don't have it, you're not going to survive?
You gotta be open.
Well, you got to be open, that's true, but that's not the answer.
Is product the same as menu?
Product's the same as menu. Boy, when you hear this, no, a manager's part of staff.
Not really, but you
This
can have
is,
a good
do
manager.
you want me to just give you the answer?
Yes.
Customers.
Oh,
Tell me a restaurant that's going to survive without customers, right?
But that's because of all the other things.
Yeah, well, that's true. But really, truly, customers. How important is it to have customers as a restaurant? Charles, let's talk about your experience, because you're one of the people in this room that has the most experience in Dairy Queen. How long could you keep Dairy Queen open without customers?
Not even a week.
Not even a week. And how important is it to have return customers?
Very.
Because that's where the majority of your business is, right? Those people, those first time people that come into your restaurant, you're glad to have them. But really what makes you the money is knowing that you've got what type of customers? Return or even loyal customers, right? I think that is so key. All right, so what do we have here? Let's go over one at a time, right? Location, staff, menu, marketing, and customers. Now, think about it for just a moment. Does the modern church of today parallel what we've just seen with this restaurant? Are there ways that the church of today parallels the restaurant? How many of these 5 things
Every one of them.
would transfer over here? Barry says every one of them. And I agree. Let's look at it one at a time. Let's start with location. How important do you feel it is that a church has a location? Did you know that that's a modern kind of debate now in Christianity about buildings? How important is it to have a location?
Well, churches is very important, because we see as the people move out of an area, then that's, your location is being,
So what you're saying is when people move into the area and they're looking for a church, it's kind of a help to them to maybe drive by or see the location? Is that what you're saying?
I'm just saying that, like downtown, there were churches of Christ, well, but people moved out,
Right?
and your base, your customers moved to get away.
Definitely. Why else is a location important?
When we were traveling and we were going through a small town or even a medium-sized town, we'd see all the signs for the other denominations or whatever you want to say. And then we'd say, well, where is the Church of Christ? Where is the church? And it would be back on a street, and there'd be a little sign.
So maybe they didn't have the most noticeable location?
Well, and they didn't advertise very good either, yeah.
Why else is a location important? Is that it? Is that what we said? Is that it? I mean, is there anything else you can add to location importance?
It's a
Close
central
and
focus.
convenient, so that you can be involved. People that live far away may not become as involved.
And you know, Kathy, you know what's interesting about that? Having been in both larger city churches and more rural churches, I found that in some of the rural cities that I've been in, the church was kind of centrally located and became kind of a hub for people within that city. Whereas a lot of times in our larger cities, you may have a church on every block, and it kind of gets watered down from that central focus. But I'll say this, I still think it's important. I still think it has a certain amount of importance. You had a comment in the back. Access, absolutely. You know, when we came here to try out, and we stayed at the hotel down at the end of Vista, driving down Vista right here to the building was easy. But you know what we've realized here at Waters Road? We have people who travel from all over the area to come here. We have people that live in Baytown. We have people that live in Alvin. We have people that live in Pearland. We have people that drive a fairly a large amount of distance to come be part of our family. And there are some challenges to that for those people, and we need to be cognizant of that, and we'll probably talk about that later on. All right, what about staff? Is staff important to a church?
Yeah.
Tell me, this is your class. Tell me why it's important and why. Tell me why it is important and how. Excuse me.
You gotta have organization.
And the Bible itself says one or two to speak at a time in an orderly fashion.
So you gotta have kind of staff to maintain that orderly approach, is that what you're
To set
saying?
up an organization and an
Yeah.
orderly approach.
What else?
Well,
It makes you feel welcome as well.
A staff, yeah, okay, I can see that.
We served in a lot of small churches that didn't have a secretary. It was just him. Very
You gotta,
frustrating.
in other words, you gotta at least have one.
Yeah,
I think even the author talks about that.
yeah.
In most churches, you at least gotta have one, somebody. Charles?
your staff needs to be people. They need to really be aware of people and how to deal with people.
Yeah, because let's make the restaurant analogy. Who is preparing the meals in churches most of the time?
The preacher.
The staff, right? Is there anything wrong with that? No. But an over-reliance to that, could that be an issue? Yeah. And we'll talk about that a little bit more, because I think that sometimes in our churches, it's not wrong to have a location, is it?
No.
What happens when you're overly reliant on a location?
Stop reaching out.
Stop reaching out. That's right. You make that your
You're welcome to
in,
come.
yeah. You say, I'm open, I've got you the location. That's what you need, right? Open the doors and what was the movie that said if you build it, they will come? Brad? Field of Dreams, right? If we're not careful, if we're overly reliant on location, we say, well, if we build a grand, big enough church building, they'll come. That's an over-reliance. Again, nothing wrong with having a location. But when you become overly reliant, can it be a problem? Yes. Staff. It's great to have a preacher, a youth minister, paid staff members, secretaries, elders, deacons. They're considered staff as well. Ministry leaders are considered staff as well. Is it okay to have those things?
Yes.
Can it be a problem if we're overly reliant on that thing? Tell me, this is you speaking. Tell me, why could it be a problem if we're overly reliant on staff?
They get paid to do it, so why should I?
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about that in just a moment, but that's a great point. What else? Burnout, if you over rely on staff, and I've seen it, Kathy.
They also act as an insulator or even a barrier to one-to-one relationships from other members.
That's right. Very good. Hey, what happens, Alan, you ever, or any of you can answer this, you ever been in a situation you tried to get something done and you had to rely on other people? And what do people often say in that moment? It's better to do what?
Do it
Do it
yourself.
yourself.
Yeah, we say if I got to get it done, I just might as well do it myself. Kathy, there's more staff burnout in businesses and organizations and even churches with that mindset. Yeah, absolutely.
I was just thinking, so many times when I'm talking to the few people that I actually interact with, they'll go, well, I'll call the office man, I'll call the church secretary, and I'm thinking, man, they're just piling, or I'll go to Guy. I don't know how many times I'll hear that.
And when you've been here for 15 years like Guy has, you start to rack up those moments where people think, well, we got this little issue here, we can just call Guy, he'll take care of it. Or let's call Miss Julie, or back in the day it was Leah, and then before that, Shirley, and Miss Terry, and some of the other staff that was here before my time that I've never gotten to know. But staff, that's a big one. What else here? Let's see. Let's talk about menu.
What you got to offer?
Yes, right. What do you got to offer? We offer a menu in churches of programs, sermons, Bible classes. What other ways do people have a menu in churches?
Different counseling classes for those who are bereaved, or for those who have gone through a divorce, or different types of things, challenges of life.
Absolutely. What else?
Nursery.
They got a nursery, yeah.
Schools.
Ministries. What about worship styles?
Oh, yeah.
Is that a menu item of churches today?
Types of entertainment.
Types of entertainment? Let me think here. Am I missing anything? I mean, when you talk to somebody about your church, by the way, I don't know if the air just died. We had this all fixed. I think it just died. I think it died, which is not good, but I apologize. We had it 68 degrees in here, nice for you when you came in. When people talk about, hey, come visit my church, here is why, what do they usually answer that with?
I have my own church.
No, I'm talking about how do you, when you ask somebody, come visit my church and here's the reason why.
It'll be a great experience. You'll like the way you feel.
All right, two things. Let's start here first, Barry.
We have attractive youth program is attractive.
We got it, man. You need to come to We Got You Church because we've got a great youth ministry. You ever heard that before? Yeah. What else?
Great preaching, great songs.
Uplifting preaching. Hey, if you come to this church, preacher's not going to talk bad to you. He's going to leave you uplifted and feeling encouraged every time. You're never going to have any of your issues. You're just going to feel good when you leave here, right? What other ways do we talk about our menu?
The people are friendly.
Oh, there you go. Man, if you come to We Got You Church, you're going to find the friendliest bunch of folks you'll ever meet. And you know what I've noticed? Every church I've ever been in claims that they are the friendliest church that's ever existed. It's true. None of us go, well, come to this church because we're okay friendly. We're okay friendly. We're not that friendly, but we're okay. What else? Let's see. Is there anything else? I've heard this one. If you want a church that just sticks to the Bible, come to this church. Singing. If you come to We Got You Church, you're going to love the singing. We got the best singing, the best song leader in the business. Come and, I mean, these are all menu items, right? Now, again, is there anything wrong with having good programs?
No.
With having a good active youth group? A youth minister? All these different things we talked about. Is there anything wrong with having a great song leader like we got? No. What happens, though, when you become overly reliant on your menu?
It becomes the purpose of the church instead of the what the church does because of what should be on the menu.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of how to exactly say that.
The
you know.
means to the end.
The means to the end. I like that.
Yeah,
Very
yeah,
true.
There you go. It
Yeah, but
becomes
it-
more the end instead of the means that should be the end.
Yeah. What else? What about marketing? Is that parallel the church? Do we ever market?
Yes.
How do we market as a church?
Website.
Signs. And you know what?
So you've got a sign right out the front.
That's right. And you know what? The old-fashioned sign where you got to go put the letters up, that don't work anymore. Now everybody's got to have a what kind of sign?
Electronic.
Got to have the LED sign. I remember when that first came out, and I saw the very first church that had an LED sign. It was back in the year 1998, and I saw my first one, and I was like, that is so cool. And I remember going to our elders at that time in 1998. Here I am, I'm not even, I'm barely 21 at the time, and my elders looking at me going, have you lost your mind? Website, Facebook.
We have a sign. We have a sign that these people made. for
That's right,
VBS.
Vacation Bible School.
Still standing?
What was that, Mike?
The decor inside the building.
Oh yeah, that's right. Decor inside the
We
building.
put it back together.
What about special events? Is that not a form of marketing? Yeah. Again, I don't want to break the point, but if a church is overly, and by the way, we live in a culture today where churches have become somewhat necessarily over-reliant on marketing. And you see it in the commercials. You see it when you're driving down the interstate and you see the billboards. Churches have become sometimes over-reliant on marketing. Well, what about customers? Do churches need customers? And you know what you said earlier? Whoever said it, and I forget, that if you don't have all these things, you're not gonna have that thing? You were speaking gospel truth. See, what we do as a church is we put all these things together. We hope all these things, these four things, help us accomplish the fifth thing, right? Bobby?
We're talking about marketing and staff and all this, churches. The church is not this building.
And
We are the church.
so then let's answer that question for just a moment. How do we, I wasn't gonna go here, but I think that's a great comment. What are the different ways, and if you've read chapter 2, you know this, what are the different ways that we use the word church?
I'm going to church.
I'm going to church. You know, for most of my life, that's the way I've always remembered it. Mom would wake me up on Sunday morning, bright-eyed, would drive me crazy, smiling, loving it, excited. We get to go to church. And I'm a teenager going, you are crazy, old lady.
Sometimes it's an event, we just refer to it as an event.
That's right.
That we
It's
go
an
to.
event. What is the only, what's that? Go by the church, yeah, the building, yeah. So we got it as an event, a place, but as Bobby has rightly pointed out, the church is a what? It's a group of Christians who are centrally desiring to follow Jesus Christ.
It is a body.
It is a body, that's right.
And having, kind of digesting this a little more, there's consumers, which are the customers.
Oh, hold up, hold that thought.
Okay.
Hold that thought.
Yeah.
So because, and let me say this, I know we're out of time. By the way, we're not gonna go chapter each week, because that's just not possible in here. And that's a good thing. What is the 90-10 principle?
90% of the work gets done by 10% of the people.
Okay. Now let me preface what I'm about to say with this. And we could spend a lot of time on this, but I don't want to this morning. The business model that it takes to run that restaurant successfully. Do churches today operate with a business model? If we're honest, they do. Okay?
It says in here, there's a multi-million-dollar industry built up around that.
Now, is that 100% inherently wrong? Before you answer that question, think about it. Because there are certain aspects of church existence that do require us to follow a business-like model. We have to have a checking account, savings, whatever, that form. You've got to have liability insurance. You got to have a secretary. You got to have certain things that you would see in a business model, right? So is it inherently wrong to have a business model be part of your church?
No.
No. And the author's not saying that it is. If you read chapter 2 and you say, well, he completely condemns the business model, no, he does not. Because there are certain things that's going to be inherently a part of your church. But the problem is, when we follow that restaurant model that we had over here too much, if we're overly reliant, what we've created is the what? The 90-10 principle. Or what Mike started to allude to, the producer versus consumer mentality.
I was thinking if you said consumer or customer versus a loyal follower of Jesus who produces results. We're not trying to fill the building with bodies, we're trying to fill it with disciples. So we got to get the customer, the non-churched, so we can disciple them.
So we're taking, in all honesty, we're taking consumers with the intent of making them what?
Disciples.
Disciples or producers. Disciples making disciples, right? That's what the reality is. Okay, we got about 2 more minutes. What is the difference between a business and a family. Every one of us, I think, are somehow related to a family. In a business, let's take the restaurant, since that's what we've been talking about, right?
It's the profit margin.
Yeah, you got profit margin.
Can't fire somebody.
Can't fire somebody in a family. What else?
In a business, you're taking care of business. In a family, you're taking care of each other.
And if we're not careful, again, we're talking about where the heart is, okay? When a church becomes too reliant on carrying out itself as a business, as an institution, versus as a family, then there's a difference in how people are loved and cared for.
One way we put it is, people are sacrificed for the good of a business. But in a family, the family is the business. The people are the business. And therefore, you don't sacrifice people in a family, but you will in a business for the good of the business.
And you know, Mike, not here, because I'm not going to divulge that, but at another congregation I was at, I was sitting in an elders meeting when they said, well, you know, such and such members, if they don't like it here, if they want us to go this direction and they don't like it, then just let them go. Well, you know, I've been in a lot of my family my entire life. I've never heard that in my family. I've never had one of my family members say, well, if Jonathan don't like the deviled eggs at Thanksgiving, then he can find a different family, right? I don't like deviled eggs. I'm sorry. Miss Lori Scoggin, I love her, but I don't eat them. Tegan loves them, though.
I'll join you.
Okay, good. At least two of us will be in a
No,
family.
no, I like that.
Oh, you like them?
Yeah.
All right. Now, the scripture I wanted you to look at, and I'm going to read it, was 1 Peter chapter 2, right? Did you notice what he called us? A royal priesthood.
A holy nation.
A
His
holy
own
nation.
people, peculiar, called out.
And the point is, and this end this quickly, we're going to keep talking about this next Sunday, okay? Lord willing. Is that, again, there are certain aspects of the business model that are necessary, and we understand that. But how can we, as the church in general, and how can we in a local congregation persuade more of this family principle, where we take people away from this? Well, in our church, 90% of what is done by 10% of the people. And let me end with this. I think it's easy, if you've read this book so far, and I've been challenged by it, and I look at it and I go, man, I want that. I don't want you to get discouraged if you don't see that right now. And there are certain things that you're going to read about and you go, man, that almost seems like a pipe dream. That's okay. Because not every church is alike. And every church has their strengths and their challenges. But again, it's where your heart is. And what are we striving to be? And as a Christian, are you everything today as a Christian that you're striving to be?
No.
And neither are we as a church. So let's keep that in mind. Don't get discouraged. Don't start to beat down on yourself or your church because you don't see all these things. Just know that we're working together to spread the message that God intended on how church was meant to be. All right? Thank y'all so much. Have a great rest of your day.
We read for next week, 'cause I didn't.